the hell is this? What the? Are you crazy? Look at this. Look at this percentage. What are you fucking mental?
They're good for your body. They're good for your health. And it's actually too brutal for your health.
Starting tomorrow, a province-wide shutdown will take effect, closing patios, indoor dining, and personal care services. Retail remains open at reduced capacity. Meanwhile, Quebec has shut down schools and non-essential businesses in 3 cities. Quebec City, Lévis, and Gatineau are under a curfew.
CBC News has learned new federal modeling will suggest if Canadians keep doing what they're doing now, we're on track to see over 20,000 cases a day by mid-December. And if we increase the current number of people we contact each day, daily infections could surge to 3 times that.
Today I wanted to talk to you about the COVID vaccine, children, and consent. Whenever we give a vaccine, we always get permission first, and we call this consent. We never give a vaccine without consent or force someone to be vaccinated. Children, or their substitute decision makers such as parents, can give consent as long as they're capable and properly informed about why we're vaccinated. This includes understanding the risks and benefits of being vaccinated or not being vaccinated. If you have any questions about the COVID vaccine, you should ask your healthcare team. That's what we're here for. As I tell my children, this is our shot. Thank you.
That everybody, every Canadian understands the importance of fighting for what we believe. And I can tell you that in the end, freedom will win. We will win.
Yeah, what's going on? This is a pretty busy chat. I like it. I see Jess, the old school. I've known her longer than any other electronic friend ever. Hope everyone's doing well. It's another day in the Matrix. I was just digesting some of the news. I saw, yeah, we got Derek here too. Derek's pretty chill. Derek's pretty cool. Plaid Army representing with Chris Burke too. Okay, cool. I lose track of the chat sometimes, but I want to start practicing checking it more because I'm so focused on like, oh, you lose track of 7 windows here, and this next one you've got to cut and paste this story, or that won't tie into this story. But that's what, I guess, Chris, you just get better at it. I guess, Derek, you guys just had to improve over time, and I'm willing to follow that same learning curve to a T. But yeah, I don't really have any stories about the PPC. I started off, I wasn't going to do one today because we got the 10 o'clock thing going on. But then I saw like Blonde, PPC Blonde, you guys probably know her. She was sending like this CBC story about a pedophile doctor who's been allowed to see children again. And I'm like, I got to reply to this, and I can't type up a storm. That's not going to do any good. So we're going to do a top story roundup. That one might not be. It's supposed to be like the stories of today. When you go in your car and you hear the top stories, I want to hear what the zombies are hearing. So should all of you. So we bring it to you, and we face that repetition every day. But yeah, a couple of these stories may be a little older, and it's not that great of a news day. It looks like, yeah, French debate, manufactured interest in that. What's the big deal? Oh, was his French good enough? Was O'Toole's French good enough? With 2 debates for 1 province now. That's really showing our virtue, because we always must worship the minority. The one with the well, I guess that would be white people soon. So any of the Nick Fuentes, whoever that Tyler Russell character is, who I need to learn about. I need to learn about Canada First and Tyler Russell, but all I have is his enemies' opinions of him. So we're going to get into that as well. But I guess we'll just start with Pedo Doc, because this is just creepy. It's really creepy, and I hope I'm sounding okay. Clark from the north, below the surface there. I'm just looking to the bottom. I hope that, yeah, it sounds cool. We're getting everything. I think we are. But yeah, CBC article. It's just a pedophile doctor apologist, and they are also, it's the court. It's not like some advocacy group for this dude. It is literally the court system stepping in to go, you know what? He signed a document saying that he would be okay with not seeing children. But let's just start from the top, because I'll tangent off in a great direction without getting our feet planted on what the hell's happening. child porn charges, resume seeing patients. That's insane. Like, this is government news. This is like what they should tell the narrative guys. Don't ever put it like this. You know, what are you trying to do? Sometimes they do really overt stuff to just maybe push that window a little wider so people are more conservative. Yeah, if he's a pedophile, but I guess maybe his passion is separated from his practice. Like, there might be some way where the communists could mold your mind into more calcified sludge. An Edmonton pediatrician charged with child pornography offenses will be allowed to see patients again. That's just great. Providing he abides. Oh, yeah. Look here. When you're touching those children and checking them out, make sure you're not thinking any thoughts, mister. How are you going to make sure? They go into a room and close the door. Doesn't he see children with their patients? What kind of parent would see this? Like, I can't even get through this article. I also read this hyperlink here, which has, like, the original charge. But I found this part interesting. I won't read every article, like the whole deal of it, but, well, maybe I will sometimes. However, the Court of Queen's Bench issued a decision that determined the college had not reasonably considered. So this isn't like him appealing. This is them later coming up with some way of getting him to see children again. Shouldn't the courts be interested in protecting children? Isn't what this saying that they're not interested in protecting children? So to revoke the withdrawal, because he signed something, an undertaking with the College of Physicians that would withdraw from practice. Now let's remember Dr. Francis Christians. He was fired by these colleges of physicians and whatever accreditation institutions they hold over doctors when they don't say what's right from Top Doctor Mountain. Dr. Francis Christians was fired because he was advocating that under 18-year-olds not be vaccinated, which is exactly what the WHO had said at the beginning of the week he was saying it. He was fired for that, yet the court is going to go to bat for a pedophile to make sure he can see kids. He shouldn't be allowed out of prison. He should be chemically castrated, first of all. Then we decide, like, should we give him a window? Should he be one of those guys that just goes in a steel box and is terrified, and we just, like, send in scary noises at night so he never gets a full sleep? That's the type of decisions the court should be worried about with a pedophile. But instead, they're worried about, but wait, he needs to be able to see children again. I mean, yeah, maybe he'll need to see them more now that he's not jerking off at home to images of horrific pornography. Like, this is still to go to trial. And obviously, like, I tried to find out where they are at this. Like, oh, they're still investigating. Like, how long ago did this happen? You either see it or you don't. You can clearly see the man has been searching and transmitting, whatever that means, sending it to a friend. Have you captured the friends? These are the leads that I would expect a news industry to go down if they were normal, but they're not normal. So that's the only thing I remember sticking out about here. There's tons more. I mean, we could go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but this is the original story on it. Yeah. Look at him. Pedophile mustache. Looks creepy as fuck. Good photography on that one. It didn't convey that he was some nice friendly guy. So good photography. An Edmonton pediatrician has been charged with child pornography offenses, ordered not to have contact with anyone under the age of 16 following an investigation by the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Teams. 47 years old. Charged with possession and transmission of child pornography. He's been released from custody and court-ordered release conditions, including that he not have contact. Okay, so how's he not having contact with anyone under the age of 16? And he's a pediatrician who the courts have just ensured that he's 17 and 18-year-olds? Doesn't it stop at 18? My God. Oh, but there was no indication that any of the offenses were committed against children he was caring for. It's just when he gets home. He likes to kick back and watch child pornography. But yeah, let him near your daughter again. Like, what is going on? Like, we've got no moral compass. This might be part of that Marxist campaign to normalize pedophilia. They're just humans. He's just got an urge. He's got to be able to separate profession from pleasure, doesn't he? Like, what kind of soft-brained people and what kind of comparison when you look at a man who's actually trying to uphold his Hippocratic Oath and gets fired for it, Dr. Francis Christians, in, I think, Saskatoon. And that's another target of today's top news stories. Top news stories was, what's the Saskatchewan one here? Yeah, I do have it. They're causing, yesterday it was Alberta, today it's Saskatchewan. That usually means you're doing good, guys. You're doing good.
The lineup at the Saskatoon COVID testing site stretched out for blocks. Still, Aaron Janae felt it was important to take time off work and school.
So the tree huggers sit in idling cars waiting in lines to take tests that don't work because the news told them that the tests do work. I don't know.
To get his teenage son tested for his mild symptoms.
In 3 of his several classes at school, he had been exposed to COVID last week. The classes were mostly unmasked, and of course we know vaccination rates a little low.
Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah, this guy's full of ideology. Oh, you got my this is what happens. I'm a professional at this stuff, and their masks were off. They weren't vaccinated, which does absolutely nothing to protect you. I'm sorry for the people. I know most of this is the choir, but it's the repetitive repetition needs to be done every day to battle the repetition of lies. It's going to happen. But yeah, so we know that these people are fearing something that is not to be feared. This guy looks like he fears a lot of stuff. He looks like he cringes when he watches, like, I don't know, adolescent superhero movies. So I wouldn't be expecting the most manly behavior out of him, like toughen up, son. Like, no, let's just wait in the car endless hours for a test that will pick up a cold you had 3 months ago at the ridiculous rate they're dialed to. So I don't even know if this car lineup have they come up with a quicker test? Should we trust that one? That is the whole problem when you find probable cause of criminality and they keep letting these people stay in power, is they're only going to be looking out for themselves at the expense of the health. Like, it's Hitler in their bunker. Do you think Hitler cared about signing peace so he could secure that the 90,000 women wouldn't be raped in Berlin? Do you think he cared about their health? No, he had to just use them all as shield walls to wait for the secret weapons to be ready and just let everyone die. That's what the top doctors at Top Doctor Mountain have to do now. And there is that chick who was from Australia that was talking about how, yeah, they come after you. They tell you are not to talk about anything that could affect the vaccine rollout. You are to deny your Hippocratic oath, and they've got enough doctors on board with this where it'll work. They are going to listen to Top Doctor Mountain and go, oh, sorry, I can't recommend that cure that could, stop 85% of these symptoms and the people dying. I can't do that because Top Doctor Mountain said that vaccines are the only way. And if I mention to you that I could cure you because I'm a doctor and I know how to treat inflammation and all that kind of stuff, that they wouldn't get vaccine money. Oh, and by the way, take this vaccine where we learned yesterday you'll just turn into a soft landing for any viruses to develop into much deadlier shit. And then you're left with this guy who thinks that people in his son's class who are unvaccinated are the dirty ones? Get fucking real. You're a spike protein spitting machine. It does nothing but lower the severity because it's like the barbarians were already invited in. Why put up a fight? But it trains your immune system much to be like a decadent society that never recognizes threats again and just lets everyone romp. So within you, a bubbling cauldron of different viruses evolving and teaming up with each other, taking the best mutation from here or there, will breed a superbug. And they will bring about what they've always wanted, the complete destruction of the human race through a mass genocide that they can say, hey guys, it's a virus. It wasn't Mal this time. Well, at least we can say it wasn't Mal this time. Just a virus. You know how those things are. Anyways, take another injection. You'll be better. And check in with your block commissar to make sure that you've reported on all your neighbors who are supporting unharmony generating activities. This is like, this guy right here is what the West is right now. And once he gets this mask off his neck and starts manning up for his child, we may start a turnaround. But it's going to turn quick. People are jumping on board PPC. They're trying desperately to hide us. Some sort of Streisand effect I'm hoping will begin soon. And the walls will just crumble on all this because everybody wants to live in freedom and no one wants to line up in a car for hours and hours to tell you that, yep, you tested positive. Now stay home forever. Now stay home forever while the economy gets ruined and no one works and we subsidize you and we pay off all the businesses. They can pay off anyone with our own tax dollars. That's why I never understood this whole trucker strike thing, because if they're destroying the crops and they're just destroying everything, they can still pay off businesses. It's like, nope, we didn't get our corn. We can't sell it at the Sobeys. That's okay. We'll subsidize you with their taxes. That's okay. A restaurant doesn't have any steak tonight. That's okay. Send all your staff home. We're going to pay you and we're going to pay them with your taxes. And they're going to totally destroy our society and then say, see, capitalism doesn't work. I guess we should reimagine economic systems like Freeland and Trudeau were saying right from the outset of this. Hey guys, the car just broke down. Let's not just try and solve the flat tire. Let's reimagine the whole engine system. Perhaps it can be powered by magnets. Perhaps we can develop one of those helicopter-like umbrella things that goes up and down to make us fly. Maybe it's a good time to start reinventing the car when we have a flat tire or there's an emergency. That's exactly what they're doing with our economies. And they're so stupid. The pawns that were put in place say the stupidest things. That it worked twofold. It worked, I know I'm on a long tangent, but it's my channel. I'm going on a long tangent from this guy. I don't even remember what this story is about right now. But we have a long history of having the dumbest pawns in charge from China. And one good benefit of that is they lose credit on the world stage. We couldn't procure enough vaccines. Israel was the strongest on the world stage. They had the fastest population indoctrinated into the jab culture. So because we didn't have it, we were gifted with a bumbling tyrant who the news then tells you is the one you got to be so fucking motivated against. We got to get Trudeau out. It's just too much. It's just too much. It's like, too much? He's saving you from being a mutant, and you'll still want to become a mutant when the shipment arrives. You'll still not listen to reason. You had all this time, but instead you just dismissed us and said, he's always been a right-winger. He's always had ideas that are different from the 8 other people at the table. That means that we must be right. Math says that means we must be right. As soon as they can get over that calcified zombie factor on their head, they're going to sneak out the back door and join PPC and say, I was always there. I read that article. You don't remember? We were at that party. I read an article that said Max was good. And I said, yeah, I support him. And they're going to join in really quietly because they're about to learn that vaccinated will be dropping like flies. They probably already are. Just as easy as it was to focus on violence and deaths and long-term care homes to make us terrified of the disease that largely didn't affect the death trends versus the previous year to justify the lockdowns because we don't look at later data that could support maybe we overreacted. These people can never say maybe we overreacted. That's not possible. So when they look back at data and all the same number of people, I mean, it's slowly incrementing up because we've got that large boomer population that's getting older. So more and more die each year. But on that slow increment, we should see a massive impact. But we don't see that. I don't know. We've run out of critical care capacity. I think they say that.
Vaccination rate's a little low.
Okay. Saskatchewan lifted just about all its COVID restrictions on July 11th. Cases have been rising steadily since then. This week, the province set a record for average new cases over a 7-day period. It's the worst it's been since the beginning of the pandemic. And vaccination rates have hit a new low.
How long? Remember, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Let the hospitals get ready. There should be 1 million beds, ICUs available for all the tax dollars we blow on. I've just thrown this money in the air, and it should blow to China, and that should help countries fight COVID. The way we burn money. There should be 1 million beds in every province right now, all ready for ICU stuff. We're preparing for it. We know it spreads like wildfire. Instead, they just insist on mismanaging an already stressed healthcare system to give the illusion of surges in places where you're not complying, where the poll testing, where we're always flipping polls everywhere. Hey, we're flipping this poll, guys. Retweet. We're going to flip this poll. All that's doing is telling them where they need to focus their entire culture of contact tracing, how much they need to dial up tests in this district that believes it's not real. And then the ultimate threat is once the testing doesn't work and we just outright don't believe them anymore, then China can insert real biological weapons through their allies and attack those communities that are holdouts. Attack Florida with an actual real one where people are dropping dead in the streets. At the same moment you have your news assets running, look at unvaccinated Florida dropping like flies. That is the reason that every second we allow our governments to be held captive by Chinese interests, we are destroying our future chances of success. We have to get control of the cockpit immediately. Everyone needs to talk to 30 people today that don't like them anymore and have alienated them because of their stance on the COVID vax and say, you better vote PPC. It's all over if you don't vote PPC. I'm going to get out in the middle of a road with a giant sign saying, to be free, vote PPC. Okay? I'm going on record. You can use that against me if I don't at some point in the next couple of days get a break from the kids and go out and do that. And by the way, I've got half an hour until I got to start cracking dinner out. We all need to do our part because this is our one chance. This is one thing that they never thought. O'Toole obviously doesn't want it. All of the assets are being pushed in the direction of keep people mollified, keep people thinking that they're winning. They must be in hide the deaths mode huge because you've seen that nurse that was on the street that was just like, yeah, we're filled with like vaccinated people that are having adverse events happening. And there's tons of people that say, well, I talked to my doctor and he said it's happening to a lot of people. I mean, you're finding out through the grapevine. And I know that's not CDC data, Mark, but we went through Walensky with the CDC. If you want to check out yesterday's Snodcast, you can listen to that part where Walensky's on there saying, same garbage for your third shot and everything's waning. Your immunity's waning. You're going to, it's the gold standard, as Dr. Bauer called it. Your gold standard antibodies, private security for your body is waning, and it wanes faster and faster, and it wanes more if you've had 2 doses than if you've had 1. So let's have a third. It's the exact same, and their top doctor, Walensky at CDC, says, we hope that that'll just fix it. Oh, and then after the third one, everything we saw in the first 2 just stopped, and everything just equilibralized. And the gold standard antibodies that we destroyed with the previous 2 rose up like ghosts and held up your immune system. What kind of anti-science are they on about when you have a chorus of doctors way more heavily qualified and not politically appointed screaming, good Lord, stop it! Fucking stop! It's going to antibody-dependent enhancement. They're yelling all these kind of crazy things that aren't being debunked. The first thing top doctors should do is go, he's citing that this will happen to people. It doesn't happen. None of them are doing that. They just say there's a problem with misinformation. And you hear more and more doctors saying, you're not allowed to talk about that. Let's listen to her. That'd be a good one. You're being threatened. Whistleblowers being threatened. I do kind of like this video, though. But that's how tangents work. The law of tangents,
other
you know?
provinces.
You got to follow it where it goes. And this chick was awesome.
The AHPRA,
Sounds
which is the
quiet.
Australian health regulating body of GPs, actually sent a letter to all GPs. And in that letter, they were very, very explicit in their directions to GPs by saying that you are in no way able to interfere with the vaccination rollout of the federal government.
That's as anti-science as anything that's ever been said in life. The proper attitude towards a vaccine experiment that normally takes a decade, that you're in year 1 of human trials, should be, okay, guys, look, we're approaching you with the human trial because you know how bad SARS is. So we're going to keep the lockdowns. We're going to get 100,000 people to volunteer. We're going to pay them $500,000 a year because we have no idea the damage this could do. And if we take you away from your family, we want to be able to subsidize them. And you've given it your all for this pandemic that clearly exists. And we're going to have a control group, and we're going to monitor them in kind of the similar environments. And those people will also be paid, and no one will know who has the placebo. And that would be like a scientific approach to this. Right now, all we have is 11,000 dead bodies, which is probably 13,000 by now on the most conservative estimate. And they're not autopsying them. They're not seeing, there was a, what was it called? Biodistribution, Dr. Bridle said. I looked at a biodistribution report, which only happens when you have an autopsy, toxicology type words stuff. Internet doctor here. And he looked at it and he's like, oh no, it's not stopping between the deltoid and the lymph nodes. It's going everywhere. Why do you think you have myocarditis in children? It's settling and it's forming spike proteins and they're being attacked well in the cell walls. That shit is happening, and until it gets rebutted, ignoring it is obscene. Not addressing it is obscene. But even a super obscene singularity Voltron of other obscenes is saying, we're going to keep going. And by the way, it's mandated. You have to have it. You have to have it, and we're not going to allay the concerns you have by eminent top doctors who have won Nobel Prizes for discovering HIV are saying you're all going to die soon. This is like crazy. This is going to be like a fucking Tarantino movie during the winter because of what you've done to yourselves. And the first reaction to that shouldn't be shut him down. He's hesitancy. Stop him from talking. He's going to get more people to not join. You shouldn't be motivated by that. You're giving up the game that you're totally motivated by the premise that vaccines work when it's an experiment. You can't say it's an experiment in a human trial, which you must admit, and also be sure that everyone needs to get in. If you are doing that, it must be to run from something that's incredibly deadly. And every time we look over and we're like, 99.9. That's what we're fucking seeing. The survival rate's 99.9. And when we look further into it, it looks like there's fucking scammery going on with the statistics, which is just taking your over-throttled cycles on any dead body you can find and going, we got another one. Oh, man, we're going to be rolling in it. Mr. Fauci will love us for how much we tally for him. And then everyone gets paid the gravy after that. It all just flows down from that. And all the governments get the control they want. And they get the passport stuff. And the globalist 0.01% who want to pull all the strings and run the Gavi protocols for how we handle future outbreaks in our outbreak culture society that they are locking in exactly like those Cotter's 8 steps we talked about. That was in a corporate structure. But it is a corporate takeover. It's an unholy alliance of the corporate, the public, and doctors. Doctors with pharma conflicts who are used to their compartmentalized lives because the field of biology is so vast that you could study fucking toenails for 30 years and still not have covered everything. So I get it and I sympathize with the doctor, but pretending that doctors have common sense, or the average doctor has common sense, they don't. Months after hydroxychloroquine was falsely smeared by Surgisphere and Saipan Desai, the fake doctor from Chicago, months after that happened, I told my dad, please get hydroxychloroquine. I know the Matrix is after it. Just go talk to your doctor, because I still thought COVID was a big threat back then. Like, I believed it when it happened, because when you know nothing, take precaution. As the answers roll in, you should adjust to the new data. What they're doing is an inverse proportion of the less the virus gets deadly, the more we fucking jack up the response to it. Oh, when 1 in 4 could have died, there was no masks and they don't work, and yeah, they'll just touch their nose. Kids touch their nose. It's not worth it. Maybe if you're sick, it'll stop a droplet. That's when 1 in 4 could have died and we were all fucking scared to our wits' end. Then you tell us 99%, and those of us who weren't peppered by daily narratives through their CP24, I just watch it for the news, but I stay for the programming. I don't care about those brains that ignored it for so long. We know that it's 99.9 survival rate. So there's no going back to that. And they want to force these doctors into a Satan's deal, and they don't want to do it, and they're being fired, and the peer pressure is enormous. I did recordings for about 80 doctors for a seminar that I did, their virtual event for their seminar. And every workshop had to start with a series of bombardments where they would repeat, ceded land, we've got to acknowledge this, it's got to be drummed into every kid's head, every doctor's head, everywhere they can. They're starting these chants, and they're bringing in experts who are telling them how bad their society is, and all completely unrelated to the field of medicine. And I don't know how racism is affecting pediatricians were like topics that were being raised. And it was insane topics, and they're not learning. So when I see doctors like this, I sympathize with them. And I know that if we can survive in a group that is millions strong, that's the best bet. Our easiest bet is waking people up. That's the war we're fighting. If there's 6 million of us, they can't do it. They just can't do it. And they'll keep that fight in that daily bombardment war, and we'll keep fighting ours. But we have certain red lines. If you come for our kids, we're all marching into the streets, every PPCer. If you shut down the internet, we have to march in the streets. We have to, like 6 million of us, go to, some Gandhi-like sit-in at Parliament Hill until it's ended. There's certain red lines to freedom, but as long as our numbers stay as high as I think they're staying, and considering they're doing a bombardment campaign to convince us that that there's no hope, like 97% of them have been double vaccinated. It's like, that's clearly not true. There's a lot of us. I get it. A lot of us fell for it. But let's see how many keep falling for the boosters. Once they see Dr. Bauer in his gold standard comments where your gold standard immunity is knocked out. That's all I need to hear, guys. And I'll keep repeating it. Let's watch the rest of this chick. She's really awesome.
And that even includes discussions on social media about potential options to vaccine. And if you are caught interfering with the national rollout of the vaccination program, we reserve the right to conduct an investigation into your behaviour, into your actions, and potentially have you deregistered as a GP. So here we are.
You listening, Mark? Hundreds of them are speaking out. Mark Slapinski, that is. Hundreds of them are speaking out while being threatened. They're telling you that it's not science anymore. Carrie Mullis, the Nobel Prize-winning inventor of the PCR test, told you that Fauci, not just the ones at the top, which would have been good enough for me, Fauci himself is a crazy power maniac who has nothing to do with science and everything to do with politics. And what people who are in politics and in this super elite group do is they make plans. And the plans take time, but they can be achieved. And they cause chaos, Mark Slapinski. They cause chaos that they are uniquely positioned to address. And while they address it, all the other people who have been informed of the coming chaos can also exploit it. And then the news media can run the normalization of what's happening in the normal they want to run. And then people like me will come up and say, that's not the normal. They're lying. They're lying. They're lying. And we will be demonized as online internet conspiracy culture is affecting vaccine hesitancy rates. So you're stuck, bro. I'm sorry that you get paid or you want to get paid by government shills to toe the line for the government and accept, hey, it's just the world of politics. These people aren't realistic. They're like hippies or something that really think that everything will change and you can get rid of corruption by voting it out. No, I accept that the CPC will do it CPC's way. Become a liberal to beat the liberal. That's a really good strategy. I don't know what motivates you, Mark. You're very cryptic and you keep your cards close to the chest. You didn't show much emotion in our first exchanges, but I'm hoping maybe we'll have you on for a late nighter. You'll be full of drinks and then you'll spill your beans on how you really feel and what motivates you. Other than that, though, I think we got a couple more things before I run. What qualifies a medical exemption is another top story I saw in the feed today, so let's do that one. This woman's great, though. She illustrates the point that they're being muscled. The doctors are being muscled, y'all.
This is what Lee Eliason would call a good day.
It's always been a challenge. I've been ill for over 20 years now. Thankfully, I'm in a pretty, I would say, stable place right now.
But to us, she sums up her medical history as complicated.
I've had times in life where I've been bedridden for years at a time. My neurological system went wonky. Lights were too bright, sounds were too loud, crippling head pain. I've also had heart problems and arrhythmias and heart surgeries.
You can see why she's petrified by the thought of an adverse reaction, any reaction really, to the COVID.
Wow, that's music to my ears to actually hear them be compassionate about someone that has vaccine hesitancy. Not like they're an obstacle. No, if you're in the worst health possible, we will care about you. We're going to care about your adverse reactions when you've been sick your whole life.
COVID vaccine. She's not anti-vax or anti-science, but for her, the question marks are...
There it is. They frame the debate again. If you're anti-vax... Okay, not anti-vax or not anti-science. I guess they're not putting those against each other. Okay, you're off the hook for this one.
Are paralyzing.
The idea of possibly setting myself back is terrifying to me.
No, they still lumped us in as some sort of like, you're anti-science. The most scientific thing is listening to doctors who have objections to an experiment that you're in the first year of. Okay? Mr. Talker here, I know who this guy is. He's like an Indian-looking dude, isn't he? Yeah.
In the last several weeks, the worlds of the unvaccinated have gotten smaller. If you work at Air Canada, LCBO, the big banks, if you want to attend university, live in residence, go see a Jays game, in some provinces even eat at a restaurant or go to a gym, you'll often either need proof of vaccination or an exemption. And you get one of those from a guy like this,
A doctor not upholding his Hippocratic oath and deciding who he lets be free from this demon injection of poison.
Jason Perfetto is a family physician in Hamilton, Ontario. So how often are you getting these requests exactly?
The requests and inquiries about exemption notes and letters, we're talking about dozens per morning or hundreds per week.
Let's just think about him deciding who gets exempt from something he clearly hasn't looked into. If he's looked into it, he would have to see that if the metric for stopping a vaccine, which I think Peter McCullough mentioned, we've got to watch that video too. I'll look that up maybe for tomorrow. But Peter McCullough talks about, what was it? What did he talk about? Let this guy remind me.
He very much wants to help, but Dr. Perfetto tells us he hasn't issued any exemptions, not a single one, and he doesn't know any doctor who has.
Isn't that how evil that is? No exemptions issued. Oh, we're real sticklers on saving you from something that's totally unnecessary because you're not 85-year-old with 2 comorbidities, right? It's not going to, it can't be efficacious unless it's going to give you that 0.02% survival rate addition to make it a full 100%. You've got COVID and now there's absolutely no chance you'll die, right? It can't possibly do that. But I guess that's what I was talking about with the Peter McCullough thing, but I don't remember the life.
Hey, how are you doing? It's been really nice having you on speed dial, Dr. Chagla.
No, it's good. The exemption piece is something a lot of groups are struggling with. And for the vast majority of people, they don't actually fit that medical exemption category.
What are you telling me? That a cancer patient, eligible or not eligible for a medical exemption?
Not eligible for medical exemption. And in fact, should be at the top.
Vaccine certainty. Destroying another top doctor brain. You're certain? This is a trial. What data do you have? What cancer patients did you fucking try your experiment on to be so sure? Cancer? Leukemia? No, not even.
The list to get vaccinated.
Someone with an autoimmune disease, would they be eligible for an exemption?
No, they would, again, not be.
Yeah, I'm so quick on the dial. Like, I'm saying no. Because the thing is, even if you do die, we just compare it to our false tally of COVID deaths. And we say, well, compared to that, it's not much, right? I mean, imagine being one of these fictional deaths we've created. If you get COVID and you believe that the mortality rate's as high as this pile of fictional bodies we've created, then you'll say, no, you don't want to have an autoimmune disease go through that pile of fictional bodies. You should take your chances with the vaccine reaction to it.
There's no evidence that vaccines set off autoimmune conditions. And so, again, they would be...
There's no evidence because you're at the front of a trial. And yes, there is evidence. There's tons of evidence. There is evidence that dwarfs the previous adverse events of the previous all vaccines combined over 30 years. What kind of anti-science is this guy? How do you talk about anti-science and then you bring on this guy? He is incredibly anti-science.
And the top of the list because of the highest risk of complications.
You're speaking about an experiment with certainty.
Someone with heart complications, cardiac issues, exemption or...
Cardiac issues. Myocarditis in children. Nope. Well, there's no evidence of that yet. There's no evidence that your eye turns into a unicorn when you inject this. So we're going to allow people to, chew some nails after you take this vaccine, because there's no evidence nails kill you after our experimental trial vaccine.
Or no exemption.
Yeah, as long as they're in good shape, they're not having an acute cardiac issue.
As long as you're not having a heart attack at the time of your injection, you probably might be you're the experiment, and compared to what, it's rare.
They, again, can very much get a vaccine.
But we know some Canadians have been able...
11,000 bodies, probably 13,000 in the U.S. One autopsy done. I think it was Dr. Cole mentioned this point. Billions spent on advertising the booster and one autopsy done when all these doctors are saying that's the holy grail of knowing what the damage was caused by. Like, to call it a COVID death, we're really not sure. Might be a COVID death. Oh, well, let's err on the side of COVID death. But don't spend money on an autopsy to find out.
To get medical exemptions. What about a vaccine allergy, specifically to a compound called PEG?
We're talking about polyethylene glycol, which you can find specifically in the mRNA vaccines. Is this a...
But they've already got the narrative. They've already got you accepting that they'll decide if you're exempt from their torture. It's not even, should we mandate this on you? Let's talk to experts. Should this be mandated? No, we just ask you through CTV polls on the internet to find out if the conditioning's working. Then when it reaches sufficient levels, we act accordingly. And if it's not at sufficient levels, we send contact tracers to generate false hysteria armed with PCR tests that are throttled to infinity.
Common allergy, can it lead to a severe reaction if you get these vaccines?
Yeah, so PEG is a really, really common compound in our environment.
Here's what Dr. Chagla means. Polyethylene glycol, or PEG, is in all of these things, from creams to conditioners, laxatives, Tylenol, cosmetics. And even if you did have a true PEG allergy, you wouldn't even necessarily react to the vaccine. And most people are usually just fine under supervision.
Most people.
That allergy, even though it's really documented, is rare. And again, the odds of being anaphylactic to it are rare. And on top of that, the odds of being anaphylactic to...
It's not rare at all. I wish I could bring up the VAERS. I'm not going to go looking for it right now because I'll forget what I was even talking about or what this guy was talking about. But the adverse reactions are the most opposite of rare thing that's ever been encountered in vaccine history because this isn't a vaccine. This is like, I don't know, eating cobra fangs every morning to protect yourself from getting bit by a cobra. It's like they'll lodge up and tear up your small intestine because you eat too many of them. But we're calling it an antidote because it's from that snake. That's how close mRNA technology is to the traditional vaccines. The wordplay switch between live attenuated virus vaccine, like the measles, where they, the drill, where they isolate it and then they attenuate it, they weaken it, then they inject your body with the weakened version so it recognizes it forever and everyone's happy. That's the vaccine that you were fucking lied to about this. This one is eating snake teeth. This one is just eating snake teeth and then saying, well, you know what? It was a bad disease. We tried eating snake teeth. It didn't work out. But if they had gotten COVID without eating snake teeth, we don't know how they would have done either. So we're top doctors.
But the vaccine is even rarer.
But if I'm understanding you correctly, if we're only talking about,
You're understanding nothing correctly. I hate you. And it's not the Indian guy, it's this guy.
say first vaccine doses, is there any known medical condition that would absolutely prevent someone from getting the COVID vaccine?
This is like for other doctors, like to signal to them, like, oh, I don't need to feel as bad now, not giving people exemptions and causing a big stir, because this guy's super confident and he's another doctor just like me.
No, again, not to my knowledge. There's very little on that first dose that is an exemption to vaccination.
But that doesn't make life any easier for family doctors, because for those on the front line, it's rarely just about the science.
You're also trying to think of the human being, and you're trying to
Yes.
inject some compassion into your decision.
Yes.
As well, is that fair to say?
In a world of black and white, I work in the gray. We need to use science. We need to use medical evidence. We need to trust our experts. We have to. And at this.
But what experts do you trust, you moron, on TV being a top doctor, saying, I won't uphold my Hippocratic oath. I'll throw in with Satan himself and say, I'm going to decide who's allowed to remain healthy. And it's almost no one. You have to be a cancer-ridden, limbless, blind fool for me to exempt you. That's what he's become. So congratulations, doctor. I'm glad we're not going to have you in our parallel society.
At the same time, we need to come down to earth. We need to be sensitive and understanding of individuals' differences and opinions and proceed in the most appropriate manner that we can.
Ugh, the way that they build fake virtue for themselves, like that New Zealander, like, we tried to educate you. We tried. We gave you time. But you didn't listen there. Now you're going in the tracks now. Like, what? That's not just because you don't listen to us and you keep saying words that are not making sense, and we keep saying, no, PCR scandal, no, myocarditis, no, spike proteins escaping the lymph nodes. That you just say, well, we did our due diligence, and we kept offering it to you. We sent you a pamphlet with all the information. We told your employer to read the pamphlet to you. Like,
So where does that leave someone like Lee? It gets even more complicated, because not only is there no national standard, who's exempt, who's not, there isn't even consensus on whether medical exemptions should be allowed at all.
We're all in this whirlwind of information that seems to be changing daily.
Where she
so they're not sure there should be exemptions? Is that what they were saying there? Did I miss that?
who's exempt, who's not, there isn't even
Sensitive and understanding of individuals'
This guy.
differences and opinions.
Get off the
and
screen,
proceed
platitude.
in the most appropriate manner that we can.
Oh yeah, you're so caring. You're the worst doctor ever.
So where does that leave someone like Lee? It gets even more complicated, because not only is there no national standard, who's exempt, who's not, there isn't even consensus on whether medical exemptions should be allowed.
So I guess, what, this is a provincial thing? I don't know. Maybe it's a provincial thing.
Out at all.
We're all in this.
They all seem to be in a battle to be like, well, we're only doing it because the national federal level won't mandate it at a federal level. This is so insane that individual provinces have to make decisions like this. It's so hard to make decisions. They want to pass the buck.
It's a whirlwind of.
I don't really need to hear it. She's a good person, but she's probably being used. She's probably being used. Oh, Tyler Russell. I said to a girl, Star Rider, on Twitter that she's like, hey, don't you dare show me that clip of Tyler Russell and tell me he's not a damned racist. So I'm going to watch it and I'm going to give you my opinion. This is an edited clip. I don't know Tyler Russell. I've heard his name from a conversation I had with Greg Wycliffe talking about a common frenemy we both have, the details of which I will not get into. It's not that big a deal, actually. There's not much drama there, but I'm glad I planted a drama seed somewhere. But I was told that this guy was like edgy and Nick Fuentes of the North. So I know all about Nick Fuentes. He's blocked me on Twitter like I think he does with many people. It's his Twitter garden. Let people weed their Twitter gardens. Let people block you. Of course there's going to be those individual times where I know someone blocked me because they're a fucking coward, and I'm going to call them out. But most people I block used to be my teammates, because I find that the mute function doesn't work if it's someone that follows you. So I'll try and mute someone and just have a peaceful disagreement, but it keeps bringing it forward into the notifications. So I'm like, I have to block friends. That's the real twist to it all. Because enemies, I just mute them. and they just rant at the wall, and they're like, I guess he just is ignoring me because I'm so super right. But let's get into this guy, shall we?
White and Christian nation. Canada is a white and Christian nation.
I want to know what happened before this. I want to know if they were showing some sort of Marxist thing declaring whiteness needs to die. Like, was there a compilation of 30 people saying, I want to kiss a black man's sole of his shoe right now, and white people need to just go die? Is this some sort of comedic satirical reaction to that? Is he making a declaration about the foundations of our society? Do you know this, or are you making a judgment based on some footage that his enemies created of him? I don't know. I think there's six people were clapping there.
That's what it is. That lesbian liberal girl that's running in Thornhill right now, Melissa Lampman, that lesbian Jew girl. It's all...
Okay, again, I don't know the context of this. Lesbian Jew girl sounds like a bit crude. It's like, okay, is he in a battle with her? Was she calling him a white, cis, toxic fucking male? Like, we just don't know. But yeah, he said those words. It seems, so far he seems juvenile and LARPy and a reaction to what communists are doing. So whenever I tell you to not focus on this, it's because Nazis, who said it? Gavin McGinnis said, there's a huge demand for Nazis, but there's no supply. So they have to make LARPies like this guy. And he might be a really smart guy, and this is just like a joke portion I'm watching of him. So he's only a LARP from what I've seen. Maybe he is very well thought out in his beliefs.
All over nothing, okay? It's all over nothing. It's just like Black Lives Matter. And these Indians are terrorists, just like the black people, a part of Black Lives Matter as well, okay? So let's just call it...
Could be talking in context there. He could say that, like, there's some Indians that are, like, hijacking a pipeline or blocking roads or being political. I don't know. Again, this is edited by his enemies to give a bunch of sound bites to people who are going to, you know, take it the way the enemy presents it. And we've learned about Chris Sky on Canada Day that everything got out of sorts because everyone believed the 2-minute and 20-second part 1 of a part 2 series about what Chris Sky's edited version of events was from Canada Day. And where did that lead us, guys? Let's learn a few lessons.
Call it how it is. Let's cut the bullshit and let's call it how it is. They're terrorists, and they deserve to be locked up in cages.
Sounds like he's being sarcastic right now. Sounds like he doesn't believe. Doesn't it get that vibe? Like he's not believing what he says. He's doing an impression of someone. I haven't ruled that out, so I'm not ruling in that he believes all, just like Trump didn't believe all Mexicans are rapists, as I think we talked about that yesterday.
These people are terrorists. These Indians, these uncivilized people are terrorists.
Sorry, that's so blaring.
Okay? That's what they are, and they should be dealt with like terrorists. Lock them up. Canada.
Sounded like he didn't believe that last stuff. Sounded like he was talking about something and he was doing some sort of bit. So far, I'm not sold. I'm not sold that he's a racist thus far. But who knows? Yeah, and sorry for the video being loud. It was that doctor woman. I cranked the volume because she was so quiet. Probably blazed
is a white and Christian nation. They deserve to be locked up in cages. These people are terrorists. These Indians, these uncivilized people are terrorists, okay?
Oh, maybe he's talking about how the settlers felt when you would have to, like, go from town to town and you'd find, like, the 3 women you sent for milk were, like, brutally raped and scalped in a bush. Is he maybe doing, like, an account of the peoples from the way back days? Don't know.
That's what they are, and they should be dealt with like terrorists. Lock them up. Canada is a white and Christian...
Oh, sorry, it's just restarting. I didn't know it was at the end there. Yeah, so... I don't know. That's my take on this guy. I have to leave in like a couple minutes, but I think that covers the news of the day, does it? There's much more news, of course, but when I have more time, I'll cover every damn top story there is. Original story, pedodoc. Yeah. Pfizer lobby in O'Toole's camp. That's too long to get into. That's going to join tomorrow's list. Just a list. Someone sent a tweet. You guys have all seen it. I just like discussing it and going through it to do a little group absorption because I read through the tweets and I'm like, I didn't really absorb that, but maybe I talk it out with the squad fam and I'll absorb it. Just how close the ties are between the government officials that get kickbacks from Pfizer to keep keep the gravy train running for Big Pharma. So all these people, like 4 people with tons of positions, like I was at the Ministry of Health, chief of staff for the Minister of Treasury and all this kind of stuff. And then, they all got into Pfizer. They all worked on Rob Ford's campaign. They all work on O'Toole's campaign. So you see how the sausage is made. But yeah, I got to get going. Dinner time prep for the kids. Thanks to everyone for chilling. My employer can't deny me access. I need to get better at reading these. That's why maybe like someone else coming on here, I'll just drop a link where I can just put my feet up and read comments. All right, kids, got to go. Oh, yeah, Chris is interviewing Max Bernia. That's going to be rad. So I'm going to be listening to that while the kids eat dinner. But other than that, guys, thanks so much for dropping in. This is a little impromptu. Normally I jazz up the marketing for these, but I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're past 200 subs. It is fucking real time now. Lanny, non-compliance will be the only answer. The Albertan. Yeah, non-compliance is best done through a party that is non-compliance is part of the deal. So rather than a manic narcissist called Chris Sky, who is just, we're at the whim of his mood swing, whether he wants to wear pants that day or pajamas that day. So I'll stick with PPC as a group that's going to withstand the coming ID politics war, and together we will not comply to anything that goes against the charter. Sounds like a sound plan to me. But that's the show for today. Thank you, guys. You rule. Jess, it's awesome to see you again, fam. I saw something. This message is hidden. I'm unhiding it. Take care of yourselves and each other. Jerry Springer's final thought. Be well.